We all have memories of this epic generation of Beyblade, which has now unfortunately ended. It's amazing how time flies, and now we have a whole new generation with brand new designs. Join me in a trip down memory lane of the evolution of Beyblade designs throughout Burst and experience the astonishing result. It's 2015 and the new generation of Beyblade is on the horizon called Beyblade Burst, releasing in July of that year. By then, we had the Metal Fight series, which was a huge part of my childhood and how I got into Beyblade in the first place. But prior to that, we had the plastic generation. This new series of bays and a new system was vastly different from the previous generations. Some people feeling let down and disgusted over the new designs, while others feeling really excited, with me included. The single layer series of bays from Takara Tomy released, and mostly everyone loved it. They had three parts: the layer, the disc, and the driver, and of course the bays would burst. But they would have some issues with durability of the teeth, and Takara would try their best to fix them, whether it was sooner or later. No one knew just how much Burst as a generation would last, and let alone evolve over time. Looking at these designs, I think they're very awesome looking because of how much color is present on these bays compared to the Metal Fight generation before Burst. I have some Hasbro versions, so the plastic is rather foggy, and of course the main difference is them having slopes while Takara has teeth, but still they look pretty sweet, especially when spinning. Here I have Roktavor, Odax, Unicrest, and Kerbeus. A very solid start for Burst, but it will only get better as we jump into 2016 or the release of the anime and the dual layers. We finally have an anime to watch from the Burst generation in Japan in April, while looking forward to the release in Canada and the US later that year in December. Of course, we have new evolved versions of the base for the first season called dual layers. These bays have two layers of plastic, so that is why they're called that. These designs are more diverse and have a lot more detail when compared to the single layer Beyblades. I personally don't mind these designs, but as the years pass, my opinion changed because even though these designs are good, I generally like the more simplistic look of the singles more, but that's just me. And by singles, I meant single layers. Each bay is getting more and more unique from one another, though including some gimmicks here and there, like with Lost Longinus or Luinor having metal dragon heads and being the first left spinning Beyblade in this generation. Here I have Victory Valkyrie, Storm Spriggan, and Inferno Ifrit from Takara Tomy. Speaking of gimmicks, funny enough, the God or Evolution season of Beyblade has that covered. Each Bay having its own unique gimmick, whether it's God Valkyrie's Spring gimmick, Legend Spriggan's Dual Rotation, or the hilarious Maximum Garuda's roundness and size, and of course, Bad Teeth, which teeth don't exist on that Bay, so basically slopes. Anyways, these designs are so cool and definitely some of my favorites in Burst as a whole. You can also remove the God chips and put metal ones in for the Takara Tomy base, but for Hasbro you can't, unfortunately. Hasbro has these bays called Switch Strike bays, which have the gimmicks and the designs of the Takara bays down. And for the most part, we don't talk about Hasbro after this because that's when their bays would start to decrease in quality, especially in Turbo, aka Cho-Z. Beyblade Burst Cho-Z's designs can vary from really good to decent at times to being very bad. The gimmick for the season was that every bay would include metal on the layers, which increased weight, and the bays started to get bigger. One design I really love, though, is the design of the Revive and Dead Phoenix bays. They look so appealing to me, and the armor gimmick is my favorite gimmick ever. Phi is my favorite antagonist in Burst because he generally feels threatening, and being the owner of Phoenix just make these bays so much more powerful to me. One design I don't really like and others can agree on, maybe you too, is Geist Fafnir because the shape isn't doing it for me and a lot of other people. And the color choice is weird with having like a lime green center and lime green proof frame. The proof frame came in a launcher set that looked like Free's launcher setup from the anime, which was a way for more people to spend more money on completing bays, but also getting a cool launcher setup on the way. The general shape was too sharp for a stamina type, and the absorb driver was just a worse version of the nothing driver because the spring would push down on the stadium way too easily and would make Fafnir do the special move absorb break way easier than the nothing break would for the nothing driver. So it would waste all of its stamina and occasionally probably knocking itself out too in the pockets. Beyblade Burst GT's designs were super cool in my opinion and were peak Beyblade design for the Burst generation because of the way Takara included customization that didn't feel overwhelming like the Sparking Bays. And it was just a perfect balance of um, customization and competitive play in my opinion. But of course there were like stuff in Sparking like Rage Longinus that was just too overpowered and ruled the meta. But moving on. The layer had 3 separate parts now, plus the disc and driver. I have only 2 GT bays being Slash Ashura from the Random Booster, Volume 15, and Poison Hydra from the Random Layer Collection. But I must say, these designs are very appealing to look at, unlike with some of the previous Cho-Z bays. Geist Fafnir. While the products were awesome, the anime had a shorter runtime now of only half of the previous seasons, and the writing started to suffer from this, as seen in some episodes of the anime. And the previous seasons were like 51 episodes long that were 20 minutes, and now GT had 51 episodes only with like the 10-minute range, which was crazy. I don't really like Beyblade Burst Sparking or Super King's design simply because it became too much for me with the whole chassis system, the overuse of gimmicks, and the bays weren't bursting as much. This is where everything started to become repetitive for me and a few other bladers as well. These designs were definitely evolved from the previous seasons though. The diverse customization allows for more detail and stickers. Just looking at these boxes and seeing these bays is just so cool to me. Like with Jet Wyvern and Death Solomon here, the only sparking bays that I have. But hopefully I'll get more Pro Series ones. But anyways, me along with many others started to feel burnt out from Burst as it dragged along, but as the years passed by, more and more Beyblades would evolve just as their designs as we move on to one of the last seasons or series of Beyblades for Burst. Beyblade Burst DB. And I actually love these bays. Not the Super King ones, the DB ones. Anyways. Beyblade Burst DB is more controversial when it comes to the design of the bays themselves. Some people like them, some people don't. The DB system has the core, the armor, and the layer base or blade for the layer. The layer can also change from low to high mode depending on the orientation of the layer. The disc returns in all of its glory, but the designs are vastly different from any ordinary disc because They're much larger and dip down deeper, so they can be used in low mode of the bays because the bays have a lower center of gravity in low mode. That's why it's called low mode. You can't use any ordinary discs in low mode besides DB or BU discs, but in high mode you can use any disc because of how they're designed, obviously. The bays are now color coordinated perfectly, in my opinion, while there are some strange color choices here and there, but for the most part, it just feels right. Each bay feels so different from one another due to the gimmicks and different parts, as well as the very unique designs and some of the names as well, like Guilty Spriggan, or not Guilty Spriggan, Guilty Longinus, Savior Valkyrie. Like, Takara's really experimenting with the names there, which I really do appreciate. Greatest Raphael is honestly a very good name, not gonna lie. I've come to like it more and more. I'm sure other people feel the same. But, anyways, some people don't enjoy the Astral Spriggan design, but for others it's amazing due to the Spriggan face facing on a horizontal angle instead of a vertical angle like with World Spriggan. It's definitely unique from any other Spriggan, and I see why people don't like it. Where were we now? These designs feel so evolved from what we started out with, especially with like Valkyrie, Spriggan, Fafnir, Longinus. Phoenix even got an evolution, which is amazing, even though Fi doesn't use them. But anyways, we now move on to the final designs of Beyblade Burst, and maybe the most epic ones at that. That being Beyblade Burst BU or Burst Ultimate. These designs are like no other because this is the final series of bays, and Takara spent more time designing these bays to make them look as perfect as they possibly can. The BU bays are mostly evolutions of fan favorite bays, and they still have the DB system, but it's a continuation of it. Since we didn't get that many releases in DB compared to, let's say, the first 3 seasons. I personally think these designs are amazing and is a great way to celebrate Beyblade Burst. And they don't feel as overwhelming as the Sparking Bays. Every bay perfects the design of the evolutions of previous bays, and they use aspects from past evolutions to create something entirely new. Just like Ultimate Valkyrie and Burst Spriggan. In these bays, Takara included aspects from all previous evolutions, and they added an Easter egg of the year 2015 when these bays are beside each other, which brought back memories for us. For the last release, Barricade Lucifer, they snuck in a little thank you on the blade, which we appreciate a lot as a community, considering how much Burst impacted us. I started my Burst collecting in Beyblade Burst Evolution due to loving the Metal Fight bays more, and because I couldn't really afford it at the time. I remember after school I would watch the latest episode of Beyblade Burst and watched countless YouTube videos from Zanky, Beyblade Geeks, Illinook, and a lot more, which inspired me to start my own channel. We won't ever forget the Burst generation and the impact it has made on us as a community and on Beyblade itself. What does the future for Beyblade designs hold? Well, with the release of Beyblade X, I think it's a fantastic start for their designs, but will evolve over time, just like with Burst. We will see how well this ages. Thank you for joining me in this trip down memory lane and experiencing these designs once more before we move on to Beyblade X. Remember to always cherish these memories of fun, excitement, connecting with other people, and to always go shoot or let it rip. Peace, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!